Good afternoon. So here we have our final lecture, and you're going to notice that the background is different because I wanted to celebrate the coming of spring. Did you notice? Did you like my background? It's supposed to be the coming of spring and a big celebration. That's the end of your class, and you get to have spring break. And so I decided, why not go with flowers? You can't go wrong with flowers. So how are you doing right now?
Pretty good, thank you.
Are you glad that the class is over?
Yes.
What are you
Well,
taking next semester? Oh, you don't. Are you excited about next semester's classes?
yeah, I've got communication, sociology, and anatomy and physiology. So it's going to be a lot more work.
Yeah. So I almost majored in psychology, and I almost majored in sociology. Those are such fun topics because
Yes.
it gets into how I like history and social studies. So anyway, I almost majored in those, but I didn't. Lucky for you, huh? Anyway, so I'm going to start today's lesson is pretty short. It's not going to be 3 hours long or 2 hours long and that kind of stuff. It's going to be really short, and so you get to admire this springtime thing for a very short period of time. Ha ha ha! Just kidding. So do you have any questions so far about any of the assignments? I think you're done, aren't you?
Yeah, I submitted everything. You've already graded them too. So
Yeah, so you're already done, and you can look forward to your sociology class and what I
yes.
forget psychology class. You're going to learn a lot. And communication. Yeah, I used to teach communication at my other school, so you get to do public speaking. Ooh, and the art of being a good debater. I only barely touched on argumentation. I used to
Mhm.
teach an entire class just on that one topic, and teach an entire class just on ethos, pathos, and logos. And in
Mhm.
this class, I get to do it in one PowerPoint, so I really don't have the time to
Mhm.
really, practice how to do a proper debate, how to properly communicate, how to properly structure. Well, I think I went over the structure, basically, of a
Yeah.
good argument. But
Mhm.
that's about it. So and also this class touches on many different classes that I normally take 8 weeks to 16 weeks to teach. Okay?
Mhm.
So this class is like a broad introduction of everything. Okay? You get a spackling of everything, like business communication, which you already know, and you get to I think a lot of these first year classes are like an overview, that they call them survey classes, in which it's an overview of everything, because usually at this stage for most college people they haven't decided on their major, so that's why freshman classes tend to be survey classes. So I
Mhm.
think it is fun to be a college student because you get to choose what your destiny is going to be. But anyway, so let's get started with your lesson, your final lesson. So can you see? Nope, that's not it. Oh no. Oh no. Did I do this wrong? Can you see anything?
Just you.
All right. So that means that I got to go back to this, and I need to share my screen. That was the step I was missing. Okay, share. Now can you see it?
Yes, I can see it now.
Yes, and so today we're going to go over a lot of things that we've went over before. Because since this is the last lesson, I'm just going to do an overview of the overview. So that it's kind of like the conclusion paragraph to an essay, where you want to close by summarizing the highlights of, usually you're summarizing the highlights of your essay, and in my case, I'm summarizing sort of the highlights of this class and what you can get out of it, sort of. So that's why I kind of went over a lot of old lessons. I didn't try to prepare anything brand new because then I wouldn't have time to continue it in the next week. So this is kind of a wrap up kind of a thing. And and it's good to go onward and forward to the next class so you can learn what sociology is. Anyway, so here is a rehash of APA mistakes. So isn't it exciting that we are now in week 12? You are just about done with this class. Once you hand in your final draft of your Essay 2 and finish all your missing assignments, you truly have finished this class. Remember, you also need to double space your final draft, because I've been grading the final drafts, And I notice that people have not double-spaced their paper. And also, I still see some APA mistakes. And so you need to use Times New Roman, size 12 font. And also, you need to remember that you need to have at least one APA in-text citation and one APA reference citation. And most everybody have already mastered the 5-paragraph essay structure. Everybody has really good thesis statements, and everybody, but most of you are still, some of you are still weak in the APA. So Anil, do you think you're weak in APA?
Well, I've done it so many times now that kind of got a little bit of a grasp of it, but I can always learn more. So, you know,
Do you think that do you use APA a lot in your other classes?
yes, I do. So, like, I just submitted my final psychology paper, and remember I told you I had to do the bibliography on that.
Yes.
So there was like, 6, 7 different things I had to take references from. So did all of those websites and books. So that one.
You're ahead of the head of the group, because a lot of the students, some of the students have never. See, I get a huge range in this class. I've got people who have published articles in APA before, and then you have somebody who's never written a paper before, never seen APA in their lives. And everybody into one group is basically what this class is. Most people fall in the middle. Most people have learned APA in the past, say in high school or something, and just forgot about it. That's where most people fall in the middle. So that this class is just a review of a high school or something like that. The more recently you graduated high school, the easier it is for you to actually remember all of this stuff. When I was in college, I had to take 11th grade math twice because I failed the math entrance exam. So for me, remembering the 11th grade math wasn't hard because I had just taken 11th grade math just the previous year. So it's still fresh in my mind. So if you go from high school straight to college, it's easier to remember everything. Anyway, so in the week 11 forum, there are still some APA mistakes. And if you want to have good APA sources, you can go to www.org, or you can go to, was it you who did the Scribber auto generator who suggested
No, that was
Booma.
Booma. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Booma. Okay, anyway, so this is actually pretty good. I tried it out, and you could watch the auto generator video. It's only 5 minutes long on the announcements and figure out how to use it, So I did. The only thing I left out of that video is that after you finish your reference citation, then you click on the reference citation, and then a pop-up of in-text citation is going to pop up, and then you click on the pop-up, and then it will tell you what your in-text citation is. So I did miss the last part in this time's video. I'm going to redo that video and include that later, but it's too late for this class. So for this class, after you finish your in-text citation, and then pop up in-text citation. So that way, if people who are afraid of doing APA can just go to the auto generator and just use that for their APA. Now here we have somebody's paper, and as you look through this paper, do they have any APA citations?
No, because you have some statements that are quotes. There's nothing after that.
So as I was saying, these are like pretty much the same mistakes we went over for week 7 and week 9. So that's why this feels familiar. So here you have, although it's not always the same paper, and fewer people are making those APA mistakes. The first time I went over this, almost every paper were missing APA references. This time, fewer papers are missing that, and everybody is good with these. So here, she's missing her APA in-text citations. An in-text citation is something that you put inside your paper. So let's say I cited this source, Smith 2020. That's known as an in-text citation, inside the text. That's one way you remember it, that an in-text citation is inside the text of your paper. Now, did she properly double space her paper? That's another mistake. How do we double space a paper?
Control 2.
Yes, and you go like this, you select, and then you go Control 2. That's double spacing, and that's what your final draft is supposed to look like. Your final draft is not supposed to look single-spaced like this. Now, the reason why we had single spacing in the forums is because the online forums doesn't support double spacing. So that's why the peer review, that's what got people confused. They thought, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be, and they just cut and paste their forum response into their final draft without realizing that, oh, she also is missing her comma. But anyway, without realizing that you need to double space it for your final draft. Here, so if she has her in-text citation, that would be inside the text of the paper. Now here she mentions money. The majority of school-age children go straight to work from school, then work every other weekend and make about $200 every other week if they choose to work. Not chose to work, if they choose to work. So here, if you're going to be using any kind of numbers, dollars and cents, you have to write where you got this number from. How do you know that this person makes $200? So you got to put in, and then you got to put in the author's name, the page number, and page 2 inside the text of your paper right after your text. And for a direct quote, you should put in, especially if you're using numbers. If you're not using numbers, you could paraphrase it. But if you're using any kind of numbers, you need to put a direct quote because somebody came up with that number by doing research. And then this is all her stuff about her life. And so then she has her one in-text citation, and then she can, put in her reference citation. Does she have any reference citations in her paper? This is the end of it.
Oh, that's the end? No,
yep.
So she didn't put
because
that in.
Therapy versus medication is someone else's paper. So here, here she should have references, and then here you have the author's name. And then what do we put next after the author's name?
The year.
The year. And then what do we put after the year?
Whatever, then either if it's a book, then we put the title of the book in italics.
Okay, and then what do we do to the title?
It's in italics, so change that.
Italics, and that's Control-I, in case you don't know how to do italics. Make in a week. That's not, but in a week. All right, then I have got to take it out of italics for the rest of it. And so here, what do we put after the article?
Now it should be, well, if that's the article, then we need...
it depends on where you got it from, actually, this part.
Correct. Yeah, so if that's a book, then we need the publisher.
Right. If it's a book, we need the publisher. If it's a website, then you need a website name. If it's a journal, then you need journal name and volume. And volume, edition, and then you have your page number. Okay? It all depends on where you got it from. And then what do you do after you write this?
Well, if it's a website, then we'll put retrieved from
yes,
the web address again.
Yeah, today's date, 23/22 from web address. Now, if you took a book, then your citation ends right here. Okay, you don't have to write anything beyond that. But if you took it from a website like an online journal or an online book, for instance, then you still have to write retrieve 3/20/322. If it's a physical book, like from out of the library, then you don't have to put retrieved, and you could just put in like this. This is just fine, like that. Okay? So it depends on how you did it. And if you can't keep track of all these moving parts, there's always the APA auto generator. So now I know how Buma does hers. Anyway, therapy versus medication. So here she has a lot of medical facts, but she does not cite it. So there are a lot of people all over the country that struggle with mental health. Most people who have depression also have some type of anxiety disorder. Now, how does she know that people who are depressed have anxiety disorder? Did she just make it up off the top of her head, or did she read that somewhere and had to cite the source? So if you have a medical fact, you need to cite the medical facts. So how do you know most people have depression? So then you would have to write in the author's name. What do we put in after that?
The year.
The year. And if it's a physical book.
And page number.
And if it's a website, what do we do?
I don't think we put the website over there. That should go in the reference, right?
Uh, it's about this. If it's a website, you can put in the paragraph number, like here, okay? Paragraph number 2. But if it doesn't have the what paragraph number, you just put in or page number. It depends on where you got it from. So this latter part is either the paragraph number from a website or a page number from a book. Now, or online books also have page numbers. Now, if you don't have a author, then you could put in the website name and then the date. If you have no date and no author, then you could put in the website name and ND, like this. All right? So that's how you would do it if there's no, that's rare. If you either have one or the other or missing one or the other. But if you have no author name like www.cdc.org, then it becomes CDC, although CDC tends to be very current, within the last few weeks or days they post. So you know that it's 2022. Anyway, so here she says that therapy helps. When you talk with a therapist, it helps you clear your mind, and medication can also be a barrier to fixing your problem because, but medication helps with balancing the chemicals in someone's brain. Now, how do you know about balancing chemicals in a brain? And so once again, you need to cite the source. And so here we would write Smith 2022. All right, so here, since there are no numbers, then you can paraphrase it. All right, as soon as you have numbers, you must assume that it's a direct quote because you took that number directly from somebody's source. So that makes it a direct quote, even if you paraphrase the rest of it. And if you're not sure if something is a paraphrase, if it's a paraphrase or direct quote, always treat it as a direct quote, okay? Because that's the more conservative of the two, is the direct quote. And then here, therapy is more effective, whereas medication, she wrote mediation, can be addictive. And so here, you have to cite the medical fact. What is wrong with this reference citation? What is she missing?
Well, there's no in-text citation, so there's no reference to author or anything. It's missing the reference. Yeah.
It's missing the reference, and she's missing the author name.
Yeah, date.
Article name. Article name. Did I say that right? Article name. Article name. Publication name. And page number. What else is she missing?
Retrieved from.
Date you retrieved website from. Now it's complete. So you have to have Smith Patrick 2022 and then article name, which would be, in this case, therapy versus medication. Publication could be cdc.org. And then date you retrieved website would be retrieved, what's today's date? March 30th. I can't believe it's already the 30th. Wow. Yep. March 30th, 2022 from. And so that's what she needs to do for this one and this one. And it needs to be in alphabetical order. And so what is alphabetical order?
What is alphabetical order?
Yeah, I had a student ask me that.
Well, they should be from A to Z.
Yes. Now, the reason why people don't know alphabetical order anymore is because people are now using online dictionaries. So you don't have to look through alphabetically your word inside a physical book. People just type in a word inside a search box, press enter, and voila, your word shows up. So a lot of younger people will not know what is alphabetical order. But for older people, they think that's funny. So like you just
I am the older people.
Yeah, so you would make sure your kid knows alphabetical order. Does your kid know what that means?
Yes, they do.
You made sure of that, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
Date, article name, publication. No, I had a student ask me when I said to her in feedback, your references need to be in alphabetical order, and then I got an email saying, what's that? So what's alphabetical order? So then you have to have retrieved, okay, March 30th, 2022 from. Anyway, I'm not going to do all of them.
Okay.
See?
So do you want the alphabetical order for the name of
References?
the author,
Yeah,
or
it goes by the name of the author. So if
okay,
I have Baldwin, for example, then I could have
Smith?
Camp, and
Yeah.
then I could have Zedediah,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yes, it goes by
So
the
it goes by
last
the
name. It
author.
goes by the last name of the author. That's correct. And
Okay.
you also need left hanging indent. And so you can look that up. I'm not going to do that here, but left hanging indent for your references pages only. Only the references pages has left hanging indent. Basically, here it gets indented, and here it's the opposite of what you do for your paragraphs. In the paragraph, you indent the first line like this, right? But in left hanging indent, you are indenting this one. You're indenting the second, third, and fourth while keeping the first line parallel to the margin.
To the
And
margin.
there is a
Yeah.
way to do it here in Word, which I did not, let me see, prepare. But it's really easy, and I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to lose my spot.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to look up left hanging indent, that's easy to look up a YouTube video on left hanging indent, and that's only for your references page. That's why the references page is. And if you want to see what that looks like, then you can Google. Literally, you can Google. You can also Google Diana Hacker. Just write in the name Diana Hacker sample APA paper. Type in those exact words, and then that will show up, and then it comes from the Diana Hacker textbook. So if you ever want an excellent textbook on all things APA, MLA, and Chicago Turabian, then the APA Hacker, Diana Hacker is one of the best books. So then you type in these words, and then you download a sample APA paper, and you'll know what an APA paper, or you can write in sample MLA paper, okay? Depends on your Hacker has everything. Anyway, here, in contrast, here you have somebody with a really good paper, because here she has an in-text citation. As the population ages and more people rely on Social Security, it has become more difficult for this group to afford medication and some health care services. And then she put in the author's name, and she put in 2007 and the date. So here she did a paraphrase, so she did not need a page number, and she did not need quotation marks. So here you put your in-text citation inside the text of your paper. Here is another one. Okay, she did a really good job here. The most striking advantage of a universal healthcare system in the U.S. is the potential to address the epidemic level of non-communicable chronic diseases such as cardiovascular, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and all of which strain the economy. And then she has Z, and you put in AL. When do we use AL?
When you don't have the exact page number or anything like that.
And you also put in ALs when you have more than one author.
Oh, okay.
So that would mean that Zeef and a whole bunch of other people wrote the book. So Zeef isn't the only one. And then you write in, see, down here, AL is a lot of people wrote this book, you see. So then this is similar to OPSID and IBID if you're doing Chicago Turabian. That was the shortcut for that. So here, that's an older version. You might have learned OPSID. Do you remember OPSID and IBID?
No, I have not learned that before.
When I was in high school, we had this really old teacher, and so she taught us Chicago Turabian. And she didn't even know about MLA and APA because she was too old for that. The oldest notation system, now that you can infer, is the Chicago Turabian, which has OPSID and IBID. That's why that old teacher knew it, and that's why that was one of the first ones I learned. I didn't learn APA and MLA till I was in college. So the difference between 8th grade and college, and that's when MLA and APA came on the scene. So anyway, here you have this person has a very good reference citation. She has it in alphabetical order. She has all of her author, her date. She is missing one thing in this. What is she missing?
On the second one, it's not.
Italicized,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So she needs to italicize her. Does she need to italicize this one?
What would that's debate
That
Messina?
that was her journal name. She should have written in Medicina Journal, because not everybody knows what a Medicina is.
Oh,
So
okay.
we don't need to italicize our journal, which
Hmm.
we italicize the author, the article name. So this could be, she could be working from an older version, because APA has changed through the years, and it's possible she was working from an older book. So that's also possible. This used to be underlined, okay? Used to be we would underline the title, but now we italicize the title. Why do you think we do that now that we have internet? Has to do with internet. How come we don't underline the title anymore, like in old-time APA?
Because if you have the underline, usually it's a reference to a website.
Yeah, if you underline something, people think it's a link, and they're going to start clicking on it, Hey, how come nothing's happening? That sort
Yeah.
of thing. So that's why APA changed it to italicized. So that's just a little something, little trivia, from someone old, because I remember having to put in a gazillion underlines for my bibliography. So here you have because I remember I did 88 pages of my bibliography, but my one mistake was that I did not underline the title. So I had to go back and physically, manually underline every single title. It took all night. I remember being so tired. 88 pages of titles. So that's why for the rest of my life, I remember you have to underline the title. It's kind of like being forced to write this. You must be a good student 100 times on the blackboard or something. Anyway, so here she has hot weather versus cold weather. Do we underline here? Does she have a good paper? I'll let you decide if this is a good paper, APA-wise.
Well, it's not double spaced, and otherwise, let's see. Von Mackinson.
What's wrong with the reference citation? Just a minor mistake.
It's not capitals to start out with. On the
Keller,
down here on the
yeah, yeah,
so we
and
got
yeah,
Keller. It should be Keller,
Keller Matthew.
Matthew.
Yes. So just a very minor mistake. She forgot to do it like that. And then here, she did this correctly. She did this correctly. She even did this, Matthew Keller, like this, 2004. Or you can say Matthew Keller states 2004, like that. That way you don't have to write, and also you don't need to write in the whole full first name. All you really need, if you want to do it that way, is Keller, 2004. Now, if the student wants to know, if the researcher wants to know what's that person's full name, then you go down to reference citation. That's what the reference citation is for, so that if you have several sources, then you know which is which. So this goes to Keller, and so, I want to go to Keller, and then that means, what about Van Meckensen? I don't see a Van. You see, your reference citations have to match. I mean, your reference citation and your in-text citations need to match. So then you need to have a Van Macken, because if I see Van Macken in 2005, obviously this is another source because it's even another year. Oh, what was the name of the article? What's the name of the, I didn't even see this before, okay? So then she has to have name of article and so on and so forth. So basically what I want to say is, when you have your in-text citations, they have to match your reference citations. So that way the person who's reading it, if they want more information about something, they can have it. This one did it correctly. She's got her Zeef and her Rashford. Those are her two in-text citations, which results in her Rashford and Zeef references, you see. So she did that correctly, and this person just left out her Van Macken, wherever it is. So it could be just a typo. So to summarize, we use APA for statistics, percentages, prices, hours, anything with numbers, historical data, scientific data, medical data. That's scientific medical data. Anything else that you can think of? Population, data.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of data, like you said, numbers. So
Any kind of an unknown cultural knowledge, such as that's not familiar to American culture. Any kind of unknown knowledge, not just simply cultural knowledge. Any unknown knowledge that people don't know about. And then you got to remember that in-text citations go inside the body of the paper, while reference citations go out at the end of the paper. A direct quote is when you cite it word per word, or when you use their numbers, somebody's numbers. Then you have to use a quotation marks. You have to use author, date, page number, and then when you summarize it, you still have to say what the source is, especially if you're using numbers. And then when you do a reference citation, you have when I say author, I mean last name, first name, okay, and then in alphabetical order. And if you want to find more examples of APA, you can go to www.apa.org, or you can buy their manual. There is an APA, official APA manual that everybody uses for APA, so that it's even more official. Everyone considers the book more official than the website, even because the website is based on the book, and it's called the APA manual. And then you can also Google APA auto generator to get sites that will cite your sources automatically for you. Although I've noticed one thing about the auto generator is that sometimes the auto generator has not been updated to the latest edition of APA. Because in APA, we're on our 8th edition. And then the APA generator, I noticed, is on their 6th edition, you see. So about two out, you see. Because they've changed it because people use a lot of webs, people use a lot of YouTube for their sources, and so APA had to change that because there's no more page numbers, there's no more, you don't have to say web or printed anymore because it's pretty obvious which is which. So they had to change. You don't need to know all the
and
changes.
you can't really use YouTube as a reference for a paper, can you?
It depends on if it fulfills kapow. If you're going to use something that's not scholarly, then you have to, then it has to go through kapow, in which you go through: is it current? Is the author? Is an expert? Is the purpose? Is it an ad? You know, is it an ad? Is it objective, or is, once again, ads are not objective. Ads are subjective because they want you to buy their product. So P and O are together. And then writing style, does it have, does it make sense? Does it have thesis? Does it have a lot of mistakes? Is it missing a lot of credentials, like dates, that sort of thing? So if you're going to use something like YouTube or Google, then you have to do kapow in order to ascertain if it's a credible source. So that's how you tell. And then if it doesn't pass kapow, because someone did a paper and gave about cats versus dogs, and she gave me a source from the Purina Cat Company. Would you consider the Purina Cat Company hey Lisa, how are you doing? Would you consider the Purina Cat Company a reliable source? Lisa?
Does it end in .org
Nope.
or .com?
Not that I know of. I don't know what it ends in. I just know the name is Purina Cat Company. And they sell
the Purina Cat Company, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean,
if
it's a
an
food
ad,
group that feeds cats.
it feeds cats. So basically, it's just not as scholarly as if you have a medical journal, okay? So Purina would not pass the purpose. Is it an ad, okay? And then Purina, yes, it's an ad because it wants you to buy more cat products. That's why it's talking about cats. So that's why, and it's not objective. Instead, Purina's not going to talk about dogs. I don't know if they sell dog food. But anyway, it's a ad, so it doesn't pass the kapow. So I was just telling Anil that if you're going to use non-scholarly sources like Google, Wikipedia, or even YouTube, although Wikipedia, forget it, that's even worse than YouTube. But if you're going to use a non-scholarly source, then you use kapow to ascertain if it's a good source. And so Purina dog chow, Purina cat chow, I wouldn't consider a good source because it doesn't pass kapow. Because it's an
we
ad.
were told, like, back to like the science method thing, we were told that if it ended in .com or, .net or something, like it's probably not the website you should be using. It should be like .org,
Yes, yes,
dot,
yes. So
edu,
if you are not sure about how to use
things like
Kapow, then you should stick with .org, .edu, .gov. I
Yeah.
think that Fortis College actually gives an orientation for students on how to find credible sources, and this is one of Fortis College's How to Find Credible Sources. Okay, it's in the Fortis College, their media literacy orientation, and they have a huge box, and they say you don't trust .com, you always trust the .edu, .org, and .gov. Okay, so whenever I find writing sources for you, so if I find Purdue University .edu, which was the Purdue University OWL Library, that's another good source. Purdue Library, OWL Library. Yeah, that's what it's called. So after this class is over, and then I'm not around to answer your questions, you can go to the Purdue OWL Library, and that is a .edu. Everybody uses their library for APA, MLA, how to write an essay, how to write a thesis statement. I mean, and grammar. It's got the whole everything in the Purdue, and it's from Purdue University. Purdue University. Okay, so they have an excellent English program. I know someone who went there. Anyway, so then Anil asked me, what is an annotated bibliography? How is that different from references? And so as you start going longer and longer in college, and your classes become more and more advanced, you're going to be asked to write longer and longer papers. And so instead of just having your reference list, you're going to have a reference list with summaries. So an annotated bibliography is simply a reference list with summaries. So it's a list of citations, books, articles, and documents, and each followed by a summary of usually about 150 words. So here is an example of an annotated bibliography. I took the Rashford and Zieg, okay, off of that student's paper we just did. You didn't see it, but so here all I did was add in a summary. So basically, you would write it's still a left-hanging indent. You would write in the reference citation, then you write your summary of 150 words, then you have another in-text reference citation, and then you write in your summary. That's it. And you can have like 150 of these, as many as you want. The good thing about an annotated bibliography is you can keep track of what your sources were, what your sources said. That way, like index cards. In my day, we didn't have, word processing, and so each source had its own index card. So that way, when we were writing our body paragraphs, we could just put the index cards next to the body paragraph we think it's going to go into, and then we could visualize our paper. That was the fun part of having index cards. And so this is an annotated bibliography. And so as you go into your third year of college, definitely fourth year when you write your capstone, not the first and second year. The first and second year is foundational knowledge, where you're reading other people's papers and then writing papers about other people's papers. And you have to learn to back up your claim based on other people's papers. And then as you get into your third and fourth year, by that time you know your field, and then you have to write your own papers. Then you have to come up with, and this is another word for annotated bibliography is literature review. Okay, so it could be part of your paper. So it's also known as a literature review. Same thing, because you're just reviewing the literature of your topic, so you make sure you're not replicating, that you're not duplicating, unless you want to duplicate someone's on purpose, but you don't inadvertently, if you don't want to, duplicate someone else's paper. You only duplicate someone's paper if you want to prove a certain point or something that hasn't been researched, and you use that person's method in order to come up with similar results. Okay, and in order to know whether or not that experiment exists, you have to do a lot of reading. So this is an annotated bibliography, and as you see, it's also in alphabetical order. And so this is for much longer research papers, like your capstone paper. Like at my other school, we did the annotated bibliography as the senior thesis. In other words, right before getting your bachelor's, which is your fourth year of college, the last thing they do is they have to write a paper. Some schools, the capstone paper is a year, but my other school, the capstone paper was 8 weeks. So they had 8 weeks to come up with what Princeton does in a year. And my brother did his capstone on the importance of recycling, I remember, something like that. So in this class, you don't have to use an annotated bibliography. You just have to list your sources at the end of your paper. That's why this is very, but an annotated bibliography is a great way to keep track of your sources. And this week, and so as I'm doing this week we're doing proofreading. So I have got to go over revision and proofreading because it's part of the syllabus. And so what are the 3 steps to the writing process? Lisa, what are the 3 steps to the writing process? So we're kind of reviewing in this very last lecture, in a way. And then I'll add in the different kinds of introduction, body, and that's the only new element that I added to this lecture after we do the review. So what were the 3 parts, the 3 stages?
For the writing process?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm sorry, I can't remember. I mean, I just know you have your, I just know I start out with like my pre-writing.
Right, correct.
And then we do the rough draft.
Correct.
And final, and then you have your bodies with you have your thesis statement and
correct.
your bodies and your conclusion.
Correct.
What else am I missing?
Excellent. Yes, that is the writing process. You just didn't remember all the labels, but that's okay. Yeah, the pre-writing, in which you come up with your outline and thesis, then your writing, which is writing your rough draft, and then post-writing or rewriting, where we are now, revision. And so revision, the two parts of rewriting, which is the last stages of your second essay, is revision and proofreading. And so last week we went over revision, which is going over your APA, going over your grammar. Oh no, that's this week. Going over your APA and essay structure. So that's revision, and that's week 11. And week 12 is proofreading your grammar. So that's the very last thing you do. So week 12 is proofreading. And so, Lisa, when do we use APA, since just for review?
When writing a paper to make sure like we're not plagiarizing.
Right. Oh, I forgot to mention
prevent us from plagiarizing, or to make sure we have our references. So like a research paper, a science paper, school paper, or.
Do you like writing papers?
No.
And you, Anil, do you like writing papers?
I do. I have the gift of the gab, so I love to put my thoughts on paper.
Well, gift of the gab. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, so revision versus, so after that, that's it. Because in the syllabus for this week, all you had to do was study the difference between revision and proofreading. And so, Anil, what is the difference between revision and proofreading?
Revision is going back to look at structural mistakes, okay? Making sure that you've got your thesis statement in the right spot, your paragraphs are indented, they're starting with the, with the thesis statement, things of that sort. And then your final review is more grammatical.
Yes, and then the proofreading would be grammatical. That actually is the lesson for this particular week. And then that's all I'm supposed to be talking about, actually, for the syllabus. But then I added everything else. So anything beyond just what's the difference between revision and proofreading is stuff that I added to your class. So, you can thank me for these long lectures, but then you get to learn a lot more, right? So the last kind of, any kind of questions about revision and APA and all of that? Okay, so the last kind of sentence is the compound complex sentence. So far we went over what is a simple sentence, what is a compound sentence, and what is a complex sentence. So here I'm going to go over very, very quickly. This is your week 7 quiz prep, in case you're wondering. That's why it looks familiar. So here, simple sentence, subject plus verb plus object. So a simple sentence is a complete thought. also known as an independent clause. Now, I notice that a lot of students still write too many simple sentences together. So you can combine your simple sentences together, or create compound sentences, create complex sentences, in order to have more sentence variety in your writing. Otherwise, you sound very, I am from France, I speak French, I am a male, I work at the store, I'm going back to the United States, I had fun in France. Did you notice how it's very stilted? And so it's always good to learn to combine your sentences, simple sentences, together by either combining them as compound sentences, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So you could say that I studied in France and I worked at a store. That's the easiest way. Or you could use a transition word. I studied in France. In addition, I worked in a store. So here you can add your two simple sentences together so that it doesn't sound so choppy. That's the main mistake that I do see, and I can tell that somebody wrote their paper in a hurry, didn't bother to read it over afterwards, and just hand it in. It's when somebody writes in a choppy manner. Okay, that's how I can tell. Anyway, so compound sentences, when you have fanboys, you have to remember to put the comma before the fanboys. And so for, and, nor, but, yet, so. Jack gets good grades. For, he studies hard. Another thing is, students don't understand what for used this way means. If I say Jack gets good grades, for, he studies hard. Here, for means because. A lot of people didn't know what for meant. And then, wait, what are you talking about? And so this is another way of saying because. The meaning is the same, okay, but not the sentence structure. So Jack gets good grades because he studies hard. And so this is very British, okay? If you're from Britain, this is the way you talk in British English. But in American English, you don't really hear for used in this way. Instead, you hear people saying, I've lived in Los Angeles for 25 years. So for, or I did this work for my boss. So for is used differently, and for is rarely used to mean because, okay? So Anil gets good grades for he asks a lot of questions. Do you use for like this in your regular speech?
I actually do, because as I mentioned earlier, growing up, I did my O levels and A levels. So
Oh, that's right. He's the exception. He got educated in the British English education system.
Yeah.
But in the American English system, did you use for a lot like this?
No, not at all.
I did, but then again, I came from a proper home, so.
Yeah, it depends on the student, but I had students ask me what that meant, so that's why I went over it.
I knew what it meant, and plus, it's used biblically a lot, so.
Yes, if you read your Bible, I like reading the easy to read Bible, but that's a different discussion. And then the last kind of sentence, obviously, is complex sentence. And so here you have subordinating conjunction. All of these subordinating conjunctions create a dependent clause. So it's always good to remember your, I don't remember my Anubis very well, but I think it's and, after, while, when, what was it, until, anybody remember the rest of it? Since, something with an I. Oh, if, since. You're supposed to remember it as a woobis. Oh, woobis. I forgot unless.
While, oh yes, the while.
Unless, until. Yeah, that's it. So if you remember it as, she's like going, what's a woobis? So it's A-A-W-W-U-U-I-S. I'm missing one. Before. A woobis. Bus. B. So B is before. So that would be right over here. Before. Yeah, that's one way of remembering it, okay? You can remember it as a woobis off the top of my head. I feel like I'm missing something, but more or less a woobis, because here you can have where and when, okay? So this is remembering, if you can remember your subordinating conjunctions, then you know you have a complex sentence, and then you know that the first part of that sentence is a sentence fragment. So that's why it's good to study subordinating conjunctions. And get to know sentence structure, and that if the subordinating conjunction is at the beginning of your sentence, you need to put a comma, and if the subordinating conjunction is at the end of the sentence, you don't need a comma. What is the exception to this rule? That's how I remember it. I think there's an H, maybe. I could be missing. But the exception to this rule is who, what, where, when, oh my goodness. Where, when, and that. Oh, and which. Okay, that's what it was I was missing. Yeah. Who, what. So relative clauses. So when you have relative clauses, then these rules change. So when you have relative clauses, I would say, I have a table which is antique. And so here you would put in 1 comma. Remember that one? The WW, the week we did AWUBIS and WWT. Well, those are the and then also if this comes in the beginning of a sentence, Jan, who is French, lives in Paris. And if the who comes in the beginning of the sentence, then you need 2 commas. If it comes at the end of the sentence, you need 1 comma. And so you're probably thinking, I'm never going to use this in real life. You think you're going to use this in real life, writing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
So, you do. Okay, so this is a review of, and so now we're going to get to compound complex sentence. So this is when you put a compound sentence and a complex sentence together as one sentence. So if I said that, let's put this together. Jan, who is French, living in Paris, has a table that is antique. So if I combine these 2 sentences, so this is let's see, let's take an example. Mary is rich. This is a simple sentence. John is poor. And so here if I combine, while Mary is rich, John is poor, and so that becomes a complex sentence. If I say Mary, who is French, is very rich, but John, who is American, is very poor, this is a compound complex sentence. And so here you would have, and the reason why we want to learn this is so that your sentences don't become too long, too awkward. So before I said you need to combine your choppy sentences together. That's good as long as you don't combine it so much that it becomes like a run-on sentence. So this is the longest sentence you can have in English. Mary, who is French, is very rich, but John, who is American, is very poor. And so compound complex sentences tend to be parallel. And in English, you can only have 3 sentences or 3 parts of a sentence as the longest sentence. So here, Lupe went to school a long time ago, and she is reviewing her grammar. So here you have your compound sentence. So here if I add in Lupe, who is a grade student, went to school a long time ago, and she is reviewing her grammar. So this is known as a compound complex sentence, because here you have the compound sentence, you have the 2 independent clauses together joined by fanboys, and then you add in a dependent clause. All I did was add in a dependent clause to a compound sentence, and that becomes a compound complex sentence. So, Lisa, give me a compound complex sentence.
Well, crap. Compound complex sentence. I can't just say what you just said because it's a compound complex sentence when you say like Lisa, who is Puerto Rican, lives in Puerto Rico. Is that not a compound complex sentence?
That's more of a complex sentence.
Oh, that's a complex sentence.
Because you left out fanboys. You would, and you would attach it. So basically you have your compound sentence and you add on another.
Well, then Lisa, who
is a great student. You need to add in another independent.
Lisa, who is a nurse, is very poor.
Yeah.
But her mom, who is also a nurse, is very rich.
Wow. I gotta go find the mother's job and quit the.
No,
quit
she's
the-
been doing it for a very long time.
Okay, so now you got yourself your compound complex sentence. So basically you start out with, so that way you can put 3 sentences together. So instead of saying, Lupe is a great student, she went to school a long time ago. She is reviewing her grammar. So instead of having 3 different sentences, you can have your compound sentence and say, Lupe, who went to school a long time ago, Lupe, who is a great student, went to school a long time ago, and she's reviewing her grammar. And so here you will notice that you have 3 different simple sentences all in one compound complex sentence. And so the purpose of having a compound complex sentence is so that you don't have so many simple sentences making it very choppy. And also when you have too many simple sentences in your paper, you look very, you look very simple. Or you look like you don't know how to form, like you didn't go to school. And it's been a long time since you've been in school, and all you know how to do is talk and you look like you write the way you talk, basically. And looks very conversational and looks somewhat uneducated. So here, if you know how to properly combine your sentences in an elegant manner, it looks more professional, you know. So as long as you don't go overboard and have 3 lines, okay? So here, Erin loves her brother. Her brother loves her too. Her brother pays her bills, or pays his bills. So Erin loves her brother, and he loves her because she pays his bills. The dog ran off when I chased him, but I didn't care. So a compound complex sentence is a great way to squeeze together 3 sentences into one. So why is it interesting to learn a compound complex sentence, Anil?
Because you're taking away that choppy feeling somebody would get by reading, what you've written.
Yes, that's correct. So here you put in, and here is an example of someone combining. Here you start with the simple sentence, the severe storms caused a record number of tornadoes. Cooler than El Nino temperatures were part of the cause. So here you have 2 simple sentences that sound choppy. And so you can combine it as a complex sentence, saying, although the severe storms caused a record number of tornadoes, cooler La Nina temperatures were part of the cause. So you can have these simple sentences, you can put it together either as a complex sentence by adding a subordinating conjunction, or you can put it together as a compound sentence by adding fanboys, okay? The severe storms caused a lot of tornadoes, and. So either you can use although to combine the sentences together, or you can use and. Then if you use a compound complex sentence, you can add in a 3rd sentence. That's what makes compounds complex sentence different from the others. In all the other choices, you are combining 2 sentences together in different ways. In complex sentence, you're doing it as subordination. One sentence is less important than the other. In the compound sentence, you're doing it as coordination, equal sentences, 2 equal sentences. Both of them have to do with 2 sentences being put together. But when you have a compound complex sentence, you have 3 sentences being put together. So that is what makes a compound complex sentence interesting, is that you can combine more sentences together, and then it makes for less reading for the reader. Okay? Although the severe storms caused a record number of tornadoes, cooler La Nina temperatures were part of the cause. And next year we should see less severe storms. So you can add in an extra idea that didn't exist in the simple, complex, and compound sentences. So what are the 4 kinds of sentences in English?
Oh, the simple, the compound.
Compound
Then-
complex.
Yes, compound complex. The 2 of you together. And why is it important to learn sentence structure?
To make us not sound so stupid.
Okay, that's one way of doing it. I had a boss that used to complain about a particular employee who just sounded so simple, I guess. With simple, that's one way of remembering it. Anyway, going on to a whole nother topic. So when you write your comparison contrast essays, another way of having sentence variety is, instead of saying as a child, this is just a brief review of the week 8. See, I'm doing the highlights, you see? Just like when you write your conclusion paragraph, you're going to do the highlights of your essay, right? This is the highlights of my class, more or less. So when you write your comparison contrast essay, there are many different ways of saying, as a child, I used to play all day, and as an adult, I have to work all day. So here, instead of saying as a, you could say, in contrast to adulthood, a child plays all day. Unlike adulthood, a child plays all day. Adulthood is filled with responsibilities while children play all day. Although children play all day, adults work all day. Children play all day, however, adults work all day. So in this way, if you can just remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways of saying your contrasts, you won't sound like you're repeating as a child, as an adult, as a child, as an adult, which I get a lot because I could tell that person just spent 5 minutes writing her paper and then went to the next assignment. Or probably it was, anyway, so do you have any questions on this? No, okay. So here are, now begins the new part, okay? Different kinds of, now we're going to go over the different kinds of introduction paragraphs, different kinds of body paragraphs, and different kinds, this is the part that's new, actually. Some of it is new to you. Anyway, when we have a funnel introduction paragraph, we write about, we have the hook that grabs the reader's attention, then you have the bridge, that's the story behind the thesis statement, and then you have your thesis statement. And so it's like an upside down triangle because you start out very broad and then you end up very specific, which is your thesis statement. That's the introduction paragraph that I've been teaching you guys for the past 12 weeks. And so you guys should really know your funnel introduction paragraph like the back of your hand. So I don't really need to go over it that much. What are the different parts of a funnel introduction paragraph?
The first one is the hook. Then
You're like 3 to what, 5
um,
sentences, but then at the end you have your thesis statement.
Excellent. Yes, you have your hook, your bridge, and your thesis. Yes, the 5
Right.
sentences, the 5 sentences that give the context known as the bridge. So here, now another common approach that I think I mentioned to Anil when we were doing the engaging the opposition in week 9. And so another kind, what is a turnabout introduction paragraph? You can tell Lisa if you remember from week 9.
no, I don't think I remember actually.
Which is why I repeat it.
This is where like you use the sentence prior to the paragraph you're about to start. Isn't that what that is? Kinda
Almost.
like-
Do you want me to read this over?
This is how about it's a few sentences summarizing.
So a funnel, so when we have a turnabout introduction paragraph, here you talk about the other side first, okay? So many people, so let's say we're talking about smoking. So many young people think smoking is glamorous. After all, young people see celebrities smoking in movies. Old-time movies in black and white feature Betty Davis or Clark Gable smoking. And Cary Grant lights up as he tries to win the girl of his heart. Rock stars light up. Now it's vaping. Commercials in magazines show, at least in the early 20th century, show cowboys smoking Marlboro cigarettes. Now it's vaping. As a result, young people associate smoking with maturity, elegance, good health, and sophistication. The Reynolds Cigarette Company even offers strawberry-flavored vaping cigarettes to entice young people to smoke. Cigarette vendors claim that electronic cigarettes are harmless as it emits water vapor instead of smoke, like a regular cigarette. Therefore, young people come away with the idea that if they smoke an electronic cigarette, that is a vape, they will not suffer the harmful effects of a regular cigarette. Now, we're going to turn it about, because then in your thesis statement, you turn about what the other people said. However, vaping and smoking are smoking electronic cigarettes are just as harmful as smoking regular cigarettes. And smoking causes, any kind of smoking, because of nicotine, causes lung cancer, stomach cancer, and throat cancer. So that is known as a turnabout introduction paragraph where you engage the opposition and then you turn it around to your point of view. Okay, so this you can use, I was going to say, for people who still have not written their comparison contrast essay, you can write that as an adult, or unlike childhood, as an adult, I work all day, but as a child, it's all about love being a child. So you could go around the other side and talk about a hard work day, and then therefore, that's why childhood is better than adulthood. Okay, that was the most common. So you talk about the other side of the issue, and then you turn it around to your thesis. Hence the name Turnabout Introduction Paragraph. And so this is one way in which you can incorporate, this is an easy way in which you can incorporate the other side into your paper and making your paper balanced and fair and objective, even though it sounds subjective. But you actually did acknowledge the other side, okay? Then you rebut it. You could also have a rebuttal paragraph. This I'll cover later, okay? So does everybody understand a turnabout introduction paragraph? Yeah, okay. Any questions? No. The next kind of paragraph is called a dramatic entrance introduction paragraph. Here, the dramatic entrance paragraph, you write a story, an anecdote, or some kind of descriptive passage, and you place your thesis. You always place your thesis statement at the end in all of these paragraphs. It's just the way in which you construct the stuff before the thesis that changes. And so here, in a dramatic entrance introduction paragraph, you're going to use a person or a case study or some kind of story to illustrate your thesis statement. Betty sits in her wheelchair with a tube sticking out of her throat. She now uses that tube for breathing, since her lung and nose cancer has eroded and destroyed her nasal passages. After 60 years of smoking, Betty has terminal nose and throat cancer. However, she does not want anybody else to suffer this sad fate, especially her grandchildren. She waits patiently as the cameraman prepares the camera for this most important Just Say No smoking ad. The cameraman motions to her to speak. Betty starts to speak. My name is Betty Smith. I began smoking at the age of 14. Now I am 60 and am dying a horrible death due to lung and throat cancer. I no longer have a nose to breathe out of, and now I have to talk out of this tube. I do not have much more time to live. Please, to the grandchildren. Then she implores into the camera, do not start smoking if you want to live a long life. Just say no when somebody offers you a cigarette, because your life depends on it. And as the commercial closes, Betty breathes a sigh of relief that maybe she has saved a life. Because indeed, smoking is harmful to one's health because smoking causes lung cancer, throat cancer, and stomach cancer. So that's another way of introducing your thesis statement of smoking is harmful to one's health because smoking causes all of these cancers. And by the way, this Betty Smith, I believe the real person was Yul Brynner. Okay, so if I were to replace Yul Brynner with Betty Smith, that's the actual person. Yul Brynner, if you look him up, he was a very famous actor in the beginning of the 20th century. And one of his very last public appearances is Yul Brynner doing a cigarette commercial. And he was very thin. I believe he was talking out of a tube. And he was imploring people not to start smoking. Okay, he did Mrs. Anne, and something to do with Thailand and the King and Anne, the
King
lady,
and I.
The King and I. Yeah, that's it. Yes, and that was one of his trademark. I love that movie. It's because you were in that part of the world. You know that, right?
Hmm. And also the Ten Commandments. He played Ramesses the Third.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He was a good-looking man. You wouldn't know that, but he was a good-looking man. And if you watch his movies, so anyway, this was Yul Brynner towards the end of his life. So and he did do it for his grandchildren. So that's a true story. So you could use a dramatic entrance and introduction paragraph. And any questions? The last kind of paragraph, where did it go? Oh, there's a circular. Oh, that's something else. Okay. So that's it for introduction paragraphs. So you can write your paragraphs in 3 different ways. You can use the funnel, the turnabout, and the dramatic entrance. Which do you guys like the best?
I still prefer the funnel, though.
Okay. And what about you, Lisa?
I like the funnel.
You're used
like
to
the
it. Maybe
funnel.
that's why.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't mind the turnabout one just because it kind of gives you that
It's a turnabout. It's a dramatic feel. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, it's just
And I wrote this off the top of my head, in case you're wondering.
it just kind of like devil's advocate almost. Like you can
Yeah, it's more fun. I
Yeah.
find that the turnabout and then the dramatic entrance is a lot more fun. And if I had more time in this class, I would actually have you do more of these kind of introduction paragraphs and have fun with it rather than just give you the style. Because I only have time to just do funnel, introduction, paragraph, and then just introduce the idea. So that when you write even if you write a scientific paper, you can still use, in this case, I would guess you would use a case study of some kind, and it's this one in which you can use a case study of some kind. And so here you could, to prove a point, a better treatment, patient B takes such and such a treatment and it takes him 15 days to get well, while patient A uses a better treatment, it only takes her 2 days to get well, from whatever that is. And so, that could be your dramatic entrance, except you can make it into a story, by providing a lot of details, who they are, of course, pseudonyms, and stuff like that. So this was fun to write. As you could tell, I like to write, can't you? Different kinds of body paragraphs. So the body paragraphs, we've covered all 4 kinds of body paragraphs in our class. So body paragraphs are paragraphs that occur inside the body of your paper, inside the middle of your paper. And so you can have narrative, expository body paragraph where you're informing the reader of your topic, a narrative body paragraph where you write about events based on your life. Although narrative paragraphs don't appear as much in scientific papers, okay? But it appears mainly in a narrative essay. So you can have a narrative essay and a descriptive, and also you're going to have, anyway, so you have expository, narrative, and persuasive. So persuasive is when you want to convince the reader of your point of view. And so we went over all of these. I think we went over narrative when we wrote the first essay. We went over persuasive when we went over the week 9 forum. Expository covers all of this. All of these different kinds of body paragraphs are all known as expository paragraphs, because an expository essay and an expository paragraph simply means you're informing the reader of the facts of your essay. So I would say that this is all the sub topics or genres of expository writing, okay? Meaning it's informational writing. And so you got 3 different kinds of informational writing: narrative, persuasive, descriptive. And we did descriptive paragraph is when you want to describe an event and you want to appeal to the 5 senses. And you can mix and match. You can have in one paragraph persuasive, narrative, descriptive, all together in one paragraph. They don't actually have to be separated. The only reason why I separate it is so that you understand the different genres that you can then mix and match together. And that's the same thing with the different kinds of essays that you have. But I'm going to go over that in a second. But you can also mix and match, say, a comparison contrast essay with a persuasive essay, with a classification essay, with a definition essay. They all can be mixed and matched. Once you learn the structure of all the different kinds of essay structures, and I gave you that in your email, and I think I labeled it Essay Structure Flowcharts, okay? So I'll send that out again. And those are all 8 different ways in which we can write essays in English. And if you know all 8 structures, then in one essay you can mix match the different structures, and then people will think you're a virtuoso as a writer because you know your structures and you know how to mix and match it. Like Picasso. Picasso was a great artist because he knew classical drawing. Then he mixed everybody's styles together and created his own style. So after you learn all the different essay styles, then you can create your own style. And then you can become, if you're a writer, you become known for that style. Like Ernest Hemingway is known for having a very short, stick to the point, almost no descriptive elements in his stories, whereas Charles Dickens would spend pages and pages, hundreds of pages, on one descriptive detail. So that's the difference between the two authors. Okay, so different kinds of conclusion paragraphs. You can have, up till now, I've been teaching you the summary conclusion paragraph. And in the summary conclusion paragraph, you just, you repeat the thesis statement as the first sentence, and then you give a summary of your essay highlights. And then you end with some kind of takeaway. So that is known as a summary, just like I've been teaching you the funnel introduction paragraph, I've been teaching you the summary conclusion paragraph. And then now you know that very well. For instance, the thesis statement, smoking causes lung cancer, stomach cancer, and throat cancer. So that's the first sentence. And then you write your summary of your paper. People who smoke have a higher chance of getting these cancers. Smoking has harmful cancer-causing ingredients like nicotine, which destroys the lungs, stomach, and throat. People who smoke all their lives end up with a tube in their throat and a shorter lifespan. Do not be fooled by the celebrities and the glamorous movies. Smoking is not good for your health. Avoid smoking or vaping at all costs, and quit smoking as soon as possible. And so here what I did in this particular summary, I not only did a summary, I did a call to action. So here is an example of two different kinds of conclusions, which is a call to action summary conclusion paragraph with a summary conclusion paragraph, and you can wrap them together. And so you can actually mix and match these different kinds of conclusion paragraphs in order to arrive at a much better, stronger paragraph, conclusion paragraph. Another kind of conclusion paragraph that I just mentioned is known as the recommendation conclusion paragraph, or the call to action conclusion paragraph, where you suggest possible changes that can be implemented to improve the situation. Okay, and so what actions can you propose that the readers take to improve their lives? So here, a call to action conclusion is used all the time in business writing, as Anil can attest to, because you want to buy that person's product, right? Get off your couch, go to the store, and buy my product because it's the best. And so that's used a lot, and then also used a lot in problem solution papers, research proposals, where they want you to hire that person, or they want you to use that vaccine because that vaccine is safe, or that treatment. So a recommendation or a call to action conclusion paragraph is very, very common everywhere. So here is an example of a recommendation where you make recommendations to the reader of what to do. Smoking causes all kinds of cancers. If people quit smoking, they can have a longer life. I recommend people consult their doctors to find out ways to quit smoking. You can research quit smoking support groups, and you can join a to quit smoking therapy group. You can chew nicotine gum to lessen the urge to smoke and then quit smoking altogether. You can also wear a nicotine patch, which releases nicotine into your blood and slowly gets you off the habit of smoking a cigarette. So this is known as a recommendation conclusion paragraph, because you're recommending to the reader what to do to solve the problem. And the last kind of conclusion paragraph, second to last kind of conclusion paragraph is a prediction conclusion paragraph, where you're going to predict the future of your topic. So I kind of already did that. Once you quit smoking, you will lead a healthier life. You can live to see your children and great-grandchildren get married. You can get rid of your smoker's cough. You will be able to breathe easier and exercise more. You don't have to worry that your secondhand smoke is going to harm your family. You don't have to go outside to smoke. You don't have to, and you can stay in the office to get more work done. And you can climb your stairs without huffing and puffing. And so those are all prediction conclusion, where you predict what will happen if you quit smoking. And so what I did was I separated these different kinds of conclusion paragraphs. But in reality, you can use a little bit of each. You can summarize a little bit, then you can recommend a little bit, you can predict a little bit. And that would make a good conclusion paragraph. You don't have to separate it like I do. The last kind of conclusion paragraph, which is the most literary, is a full circle conclusion. Picks up an idea or image suggested in the introduction and echoes it in the conclusion. Such a conclusion might also refer back to an anecdote or example mentioned previously and show how it is still relevant. Full circle conclusions provide a satisfying solution to the problem you have raised. And so a full circle means that you come full circle, that somehow you mentioned Betty Smith's in her commercial with the vaping and how she's so relieved she lived long enough to actually make that commercial. And then in the conclusion, you tell about how Betty Smith only lived a few days after that commercial. So smoking causes, going back to Betty, shortly after she made her stop smoking commercial, she passed away of lung cancer. Betty was glad she was able to get the message out about the dangers of smoking to her children and grandchildren. She was worried that her grandson, who had just started smoking, would end up like her. So she wants her grandson to not end up with a tube in her throat. She hoped that by seeing the commercial, because when she made the commercial, she actually did have the tube in her throat, and she actually did sound very, raspy, So she hoped that if the grandson sees the commercial, he would stop smoking. Okay? Oh, there's another one, quotation. Oh, I was wrong. This is not the last one. Okay. So, full circle conclusions provide a satisfying solution to the problem you have raised. So if you use an anecdote, dramatic entrance, introduction, then you can use a full circle conclusion. They kind of go together, kind of like not only but also type stuff. And you could plan ahead, saying, okay, I'm going to use a dramatic entrance, a story in my introduction. Now I've got to find a way to weave that story and tell the conclusion of that story into my conclusion. That's a full circle conclusion paragraph. That's very literary, okay? That's very common when people write literary essays. But you can still use it in everyday so that you come full circle at what you start with. And also it can be part of your title as well. So someone who has a really good paper, they summarize the same words in their title, then they use the same story in their introduction, and come back to that story in the conclusion, and even manage to stick in the title in that conclusion. Now that's a very good paper, because you're able to go around and wrap it up and still stay to the point. So that's a classy paper. Anyway, I think this is the last one. Yeah. So the last kind of conclusion paragraph is a quotation in which you start it off. It's like pie structure. Okay. This is a quotation conclusion. Is just like the pie structure in which you have your thesis statement as the first sentence. Then you write one important main in-text citation, and then you talk about the in-text citation for the rest of your paragraph. So that a quotation paragraph is synonymous with a pie structure paragraph. So if you know what a pie structure, so what kind of quotations would you use? Some people would use factual quotations. So you can use factual quotations. You can use quirky facts that people don't know about. Something that's unusual, or something funny, or dramatic. Okay, that's up to you. It's the same way as hooks. You would use a hook quotation conclusion, a hook quotation to get the reader to hook into your conclusion. And so that is just like the different kinds of essay hooks. So if you want to look up different kinds of quotations, it's the same thing as different kinds of essay hooks. Okay, equals, where's the equal sign? Oh well, I'll just type it. Equals different kinds of quotations, because it's something that's quirky, factual, unusual, or funny, or dramatic, like a cliffhanger. He stood on the roof. Then what? That kind of stuff. So it's just like, so a quotation hooks you into the conclusion. And so here I did and that's it. That's it for conclusion, body and introduction paragraphs. So did you learn something new from, this is the new part of the lesson. Did you enjoy it?
I did, because now I know about conclusions.
You can
part.
So that's where you are in your paper, aren't you?
What? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's good. So that for whatever paper you write, because I'm going to give you these notes, this lecture, so that way you can always refer back So if you forget in the future, you can always look back. What's a dramatic entrance? I forgot. What kinds of introduction should I write to this essay? I'm stuck. I'm drawing a blank. Then you can come back to these notes and then think about which of these introduction paragraphs fits whatever essay you want to write. So you don't have to memorize and remember everything now. This is like a dictionary or something. Think of it as a dictionary, and you could come back to it later on. Later, if you write enough papers, everything in the dictionary becomes automatic. It depends on how much you write, you see. That's why I tell students to keep a writing journal, okay? And you practice this on everything that you like a diary or something. And let's say you read an article, so you would tell yourself, I'm actually going to practice writing an introduction, a turnabout introduction paragraph in my writing journal. Or I'm actually going to practice writing, and this is not some writing teacher assigning you something. This is you going to a newspaper or something, and you assign yourself something to practice. And that's how you learn to write, is you have to make yourself practice. And after a while, when you get the hang of all these styles, you start to have fun writing. Once you know how to do it, it's a lot of fun once you know how to do it. Okay, that I know, and writing is so much fun for me, because for me it's a way to release stress. Okay, once I see it on paper. So all of these are different, and you don't have to write a complete essay. You could just sit and write a conclusion, sit and just write an introduction, that sort of thing. You can write bits and parts of a paper just to learn the style. They do that in Europe a lot. In Europe, kids or students have to learn the writing style of different authors. They have to learn the writing styles of different genres, so that by the time they get to high school, that all of this is pretty much, you know this. And I think that Anil would understand it, since he went to British school, correct?
Yeah, because it was very common for us to read the book and summarize the book,
Yes.
and writing style of the author, write
Yes.
about that. So
I didn't go to British school, I went to French. So in France, it's about commentaire composé, where you talk about the context, you talk about the story, then you talk about what you think of that story. So that was the commentaire composé, composed commentary. That's how you translate it into English. And that was how our teacher taught us to do literary essays. Then we had to study out of Queneau, Q-U-E-N-A, I don't know how to, Queneau. Queneau wrote one paragraph about this guy getting on a bus or something like that. And then he wrote 20 different ways in which you can write a guy gets on a bus, based on 20 different authors. Queneau. And I don't think that's French, so I don't know if that's in British does that or not. But it's considered a standard text to learning writing style if you're French. So I went through the French system. That's why I know all the French stuff. And I should have learned a different language that was more anyway, Queneau. So if you want to learn writing style, I don't remember the full name, writing style. 20 ways to write the same paragraph. At the time, I thought that was so boring to write one paragraph, 20 different, because when you're young, you want something different. When you repeat yourself just a little bit, when the older person, and when you're young, it's like so boring. I used to, but anyway. So, do you have any questions? No. So here, beyond the five, so here, if you want to write a paper that's longer than 5 paragraphs, so here you could have smoking causes lung cancer, stomach cancer, and throat cancer. So before I tell you the answer, Lisa, how do I transform a 5-paragraph essay into a book? Or into something longer? Do you know?
No, I mean, I would just think that each paragraph, I wouldn't say paragraph, but
you were on the right track.
Okay, so like each of your subunits, like your lung cancer, stomach cancer, throat cancer, those would be like your titles of your chapters, and then
exactly
in each one.
That's exactly it. Yes, and so that your introduction paragraph becomes your introduction chapter. Your paragraph 2 becomes chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. It's that simple. because in English, unlike other languages, English is a linear language. A goes to B, B goes to C, and A goes to Z, compared to, let's say, Hebrew. So you are familiar with the parables of the Bible. So in Hebrew and in other languages, you have a more circular kind of a meaning, okay? In Asian languages, it's more of a zigzag kind of a meaning, in which you mention the subject once, and then that's it. He, she, they. And then from that one sentence at the beginning of the essay, you know what everything is at the end of the essay. You don't have to keep repeating the subject all the time like in English, okay? So in Chinese and Japanese, it's more of a zigzag. And then in Middle Eastern languages, it's more of a circle. And in European languages, straight down. Although British English and American English is straight down, whereas Latin languages might actually wander, because you have Marcel Proust, who wrote one sentence for like 100 pages. So French and Latin base can have longer sentences because they put a lot of ki, and ku. That's who, and that in English. So I don't know, can you do that in Spanish? You can have longer sentences as long as you attach a K or a can to it. I know you can do it in French.
Maybe, I don't know.
It's still seen as sloppy, but then it's still seen as somewhat correct. It's not seen as totally professional, but then it's not totally wrong either in French. And also, depending on how you phrase your sentences, it can actually be flowery and literary and beautiful and poetic. So that's how it is in French. You got to read Marcel Proust if you want to. It's been translated into English. So if you read Marcel Proust, I forgot the name of the book. Anyway, I'll have to look that up. But that was the book that he starts out with a madeleine, with a cookie, and when he smells the cookie, it reminds him of his childhood. Remembrance of Things Past. Okay, that's the name of the book in English. Remembrance of Things Past. Anyway, that's a really good book, where he has like one sentence for like, so he has really long sentences. If you like to read, and also basically what he did was, Marcel Proust, he made fun of all of the anti-Jewish aristocrats of his time, and he put in just enough descriptive information that each aristocrat knew that Marcel Proust was making fun of him without naming names. He would say Mr. P, and then he would give a physical, this fat guy who wears whatever, and when he eats such and such a cookie, he gets it all over himself, and everybody knew who it was. And so Marcel Proust, he got back at them by writing this book, so that the people at that time knew who he was making fun of. Anyway, you could tell I was a French major. I'm done with this, right? Beyond the 5-paragraph essay, you would just turn it into chapters, or you could have a heading. And then if you're going to write you can write two paragraphs on lung cancer, then you need to write 2 paragraphs on stomach cancer, 2 paragraphs on throat cancer, whatever a number of paragraphs, they should all be even. And so that would be the amount you would write for a capstone paper. So if you're writing, that's the paper that people write at the end of their senior year in college. That is 4 years of college. And you write five paragraphs of this one, 5 paragraphs of that one, 5 paragraphs of that one. 5 is about 10 pages, 10 to 15 pages for a capstone paper. In other words, a senior paper, senior thesis. And so that's the longest paper you're going to write in college. And so that's how we stretch the 5-paragraph essay structure into, and so here you have the examples, several paragraphs, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. We'll do a few, and so that's it. That's the end of this lecture. And I want you to just take this 2 or 3 minutes to take this fun post-test to show how much you have progressed in this class, that you didn't know any of this before you started this class. What is the first paragraph of the essay? What's that called again?
The last sentence of the first paragraph?
Yeah.
The thesis.
Thesis statement. And what is it that needs 5 to 10 sentences about one idea?
Body paragraph.
Body paragraph. And so the middle paragraph, that's the same thing. What is the last paragraph called? You already know that.
I'll give this one to Anil.
Conclusion.
The first paragraph that engages the opposition. This is what we learned in this lesson.
The turnabout.
Turnabout.
Yeah.
Turnabout.
Mhm.
The first paragraph that includes the conclusion. And the conclusion includes the first paragraph. One has the
Like
other.
a summary? No.
In other words, like a,
Oh, circle.
yes, it's a full circle. In other
Full
words,
circle.
you mentioned Betty Smith in the beginning, then you mentioned Betty Smith at the end, okay? So that is a full circle. That's very literary. And a story with a moral is called what kind of essay?
We did that.
I don't remember. Hang on. Story with a moral.
Narrative.
A narrative, yes.
Nice. Very
I
nice.
couldn't think of
Essay-
the word.
An essay that groups things into categories is what kind of essay?
Group things into-
That would be your week 3, roughly, your week 3 lecture, or week 4 lecture, somewhere early in the class. I taught you different kinds of essays.
I don't remember.
Okay, it's a classification essay.
Oh.
But
Okay.
don't worry, I'm going to give you the essay flowchart so you can have that as. I had one student use my essay flowcharts as a reference throughout his entire 4-year college career. He said he loved it. All he had to do was just look it up, and he would know what to write. He said, and he was so like a type of argumentation where you concede to the other side. Is that a Toulmin or Rogerian argumentation?
And that would be a Rogerian.
Rogerian. A type of argumentation used in debates where you have a counter argument and a rebuttal paragraph is what kind of argument?
What's the Toulmin?
Would be the Tolman.
Is the other one.
Yeah.
Take a position, call to action, problem solution. What kind of essay is this?
That's a persuasive one.
There's 3 kinds of this kind of essay. Take a
Persuasive.
position,
there's the-
call
there's
to
the-
action, problem solution are 3 kinds of blank essay. Fill in the blank. What kind of essay is that? I know it's not narrative
Persuasive
essay.
essays?
Yes, excellent, yes. 3 kinds of persuasive essay. So I did this, originally all of these were supposed to be for my Jeopardy. So you're supposed to say, what is a persuasive essay? But then I didn't have time to do all the whatchamacallit, so I ended up doing it like this. An illogical argument is called, what is a
Logical argument.
A debate?
No, we just finished that. That was Toulmin. Begins with an F.
A fallacy?
Fallacy, yes. An illogical argument is a fallacy. Ethos is the appeal to what?
The
No, it's ethics.
ethical
So
part.
Ethical. Credibility, okay? Pathos is the appeal to
Your pathology, like there to be somebody to be like empathetic. Or
yes, correct. Emotion, yes, correct. That's one way of remembering. Yes, sympathy, empathetic. Logos is the appeal to
the mind.
the mind. And why do we need ethos, pathos, and logos together?
that goes back to creating a fallacy. So that's a credible.
Yes, it's to avoid fallacies and to have a credible argument. Yes. And what does CAPAL stand for? What is it used for?
The credibility
Of
Author, then P is for, oh gosh, I just wrote this.
my paper is somewhere else, so I'm not
And
even-
I got it. Okay, so to make sure the first one, it's current, so we're not looking at something that was written in the 1800s. Credible author, and has a proper purpose. It's not for advertising. Then it's objective, refers to the actual topic, and the writing style.
yes. And so if you know something is an ad, then you know that it's a fallacy of relevance, because a fallacy of relevance means that you make a claim without good, credible evidence. So commercials typically would say, research shows that this kind of gum is the best. Doctors say, and then you ask yourself, which doctors? What research? Who said that? And then if someone doesn't specify which doctor, and if it's not something that you can look up and fact check, then it is a fallacy of relevance. An illogical argument where you focus on people and not the issue. In other words, you insult the person. That person is fat, therefore he must not know much, or something like that. What kind of fallacy is that? What kind of illogical argument is that? It's a Latin word. It's ad hominem. In other words, and they do it a lot in politics, is when you find dirt about the other political candidate, and then you try to use that dirt in your campaign to make yourself look much better. Okay, so we want to focus on the issue, not on the people. So that becomes a fallacy of ad hominem. And what is an illogical argument when you do something because everyone else is doing it? Like the shopping channel. Go buy this shirt. We're almost running out. It's almost sold out. Everybody else is getting it. You want to get on the, starts with a B, an A, bandwagon. That's known as a bandwagon fallacy. Yeah, we don't do something just because everybody else is doing it. So, and we did this. What kind of transition words are moreover, further, and in addition? Is it a transition word of opposition, addition, or consequence?
Addition.
Addition, yes, because it says in addition. What kind of transition words are on the other hand, otherwise, however? Is it transition words of addition, opposition, similarity, or consequence?
Opposition.
Opposition, yes. A clause that cannot stand alone, is that a dependent or independent clause?
Dependent.
Dependent. A clause that stands alone,
Is it independent?
is an independent clause. What kind of sentences have fanboys?
Complex.
Complex. Compound complex.
Compound sentences, yeah, because
Oh yeah, compounds, exactly. Okay.
John is poor, comma, but Anil is rich. No, I'm just kidding. What kind of sentences have only subject, verb, and adjective?
Simple.
Like, yes, John is poor, yeah. What kind of sentences have subordinating conjunctions?
Compound. Complex.
Complex, yeah. So complex means that you have one dependent clause and an independent clause. So I have this much, and we did all of this already. So here are, how can this class be improved? We'll just do the one question. Anil.
I don't know. I thought it was great.
I don't think you can. I've taken English before and it was terrible, and this was actually really good. So
You actually learned something, in other words.
I did. I did.
So this is known as a post-test, which is given. Usually people take a pre-test and a post-test. And so you're supposed to take the pre-test in week 1. Most people flunk that. And then usually when they do the post-test, and when people realize that they know stuff they didn't know before, they like the class, usually. So that's
Yeah,
what
it was
this
good.
post-test is for. And so don't forget to fill out your end of, this is my last sentence, and don't forget to fill out your,
Feedback.
I did the survey.
end of class survey. It comes in your email. So
Yeah, I did it.
I already did
Okay.
that too.
It's like,
I
it's
did
like my boss wants it to go up to 80%. So far, I've only got 35%. You know,
Wow.
so I'm trying to
I was
drum
like,
up
I
business.
did it.
All right, you did it. Everybody here did it. How do you like my background? Isn't it better than the usual
Thank
office?
you. Vibrant.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to celebrate spring. And so that's why I decided, yeah, okay, for the last class, let's do it. And it's not too distracting either for the last class. So I wanted you guys to know that it has been a blast having all of you in this class all 12 weeks. And I'm sad to see you go, but you're going to learn more new things from the next teacher who's going to teach you about communication, sociology, and all the rest of that fun stuff. Although I don't know about chemistry and biology. I remember I wasn't. But you guys have to be good at that because you guys are going to be nurses. So I usually used to end my week 12 with medical writer, but I didn't put that in. I could give you one of my older lecture notes as well. Anyway, because that has all of that. So the thing I mentioned about medical writer is that if you on the side, if you want to write stuff about something like what's a good diet, what's a healthy diet for people to eat or something, magazines and diet magazines, especially Glamour and all those kind of magazines, they want to know what's a healthy diet, so you can make a little change because you're a nurse and you have medical expertise. They might hire you over someone who's just a freelance writer, like myself. Okay, you can actually say, oh, I'm a nurse. I have expertise in this medical field, that medical field. So if somebody is looking for a medical writer, you could actually hang out your shingle. The only bias that someone said is that they still like doctors more than nurses. So if I'm an editor and I have someone who's a doctor and wants to write the article, I might hire the doctor over the nurse. But I would hire the nurse over the freelance person who knows nothing. So that's usually the order according to nursesjournal.org. But it's something to think about. If you like writing, you can look into medical writing, and you can use your expertise and say, well, I know all the parts of the body. I know the treatment for this. It actually depends. And if you go to nursesjournal.org, you get a feel for what other nurses have written for other nurses. That would be best practices kind of articles. So I went over that in one of my other lectures too. So you could take a look to see if you like to write. If you're done with writing after this class and that's it, is that you, Lisa? You're done with writing?
Well, unless it's like mandatory for another class, then I'll talk about it.
Okay.
I might think about writing again, but yeah.
You might want to do it, let's say your kid wants to know about something, So
I'm saving my notes.
Saving your notes. So you can save all the notes from this lecture and from all my other lectures, and then you could use it for your future papers, just like my past student did. And I remember right before he graduated, he then said, if it wasn't for your notes, I wouldn't have been able to get through all the college papers, especially the essay flowcharts. And the only one that I was missing on the essay flowchart was the problem solution paper, because that was much more complicated, and I didn't include it in the original one. And then I gave him that one, and then he thanked me. Then he disappeared, So you can use my
just waiting on that. That's all he was waiting on.
Yes. So I will give you my essay flowcharts and my week 12 lecture notes as my last, I guess you could call it a parting gift to you. And you can use that as a reference for all your papers in all subjects. And by the way, anything you write goes through the writing process. So if you have no more questions, enjoy the spring day. And I really enjoyed having you guys in this class. Yes, Anil.
One more question. With regards to your lectures and stuff, because I know I have subscribed to you on YouTube, so I see all the stuff you come up with on there as well. So all these things, are they on all your YouTube channels? I mean, are they on your YouTube channel as well?
Yes, all of my lectures are on my YouTube channel. And then as I do for my future classes, it's going to be pretty much the same material, obviously. So, you can still see that. And then from time to time, I do post different videos, just like when I posted recently the auto APA generator, which is unrelated to my lectures. That would be what people who have graduated from the class, they would only pay attention to those little videos. You would no longer have to listen for a whole hour anymore, because you've already been through the whole hour. So all you have to do is 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, a little tip here, a little tip there, that sort of thing. And that's why I asked students if there are any video topics you want me to make, I can do it for graduates. And then you can always email me to ask about, can you go over the dangling modifiers again, or I don't quite remember what that is. Just like my student with his, he ran out of essay flowcharts and said, but you don't have a flowchart for that. I don't know what to do. She was like panicking. And then I said, oh, here's the flowchart. He goes, oh, he calmed down. Thanks, Professor H. And then he was able to finish college. It wouldn't have finished college without you. This is at my other school. So this is somebody who doesn't like to write, doesn't like to read. I recognize his voice. He doesn't like to read, doesn't like to write, and just wants to follow a template. And then he's done. And then he goes right back to whatever video games or whatever it was he likes to do besides reading and writing. People who read a lot usually write very well. People who don't read a lot usually need more work in their writing and vocabulary and grammar for that matter. So the more you read, the better you write. That's a great way to end the class.
Perfect.
Always try to find something to read. And try to emulate your favorite author. Emulate their writing style. Not word per word, of course, because that's plagiarism. But if he uses a lot of description, or if he doesn't use a lot of description, that sort of thing. And then you could always buy a writing style book that can tell you what to emulate, what not to emulate. And I also recommend, as a parting advice, keep a writing journal. And then you can always Google topics for writing journal. And you have to really, even if you don't like to write, you will find that it gets easier over time when you practice. It becomes fun, and then you get good at it, and then you're going to realize that you can teach that to others, like your children, especially during pandemic times. Everybody is homeschooling, you see.
Yeah.
So all the things that I taught you, you can teach your kids or your friends' kids, because somebody is homeschooling during this time period because of the pandemic. I never used to give tips for the elementary school like I did with this class. The past 2 years I have, because of the pandemic. That's how it's changed this industry, is I now give people homeschooling material. I never used to do that before. People never used to ask for that. So
if we have to contact you in the future with regards to something,
yeah, you can
what-
still use this. You can still use this address, or you could also use my regular address that I'll send you through the mail, since everybody watches this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, my email address is right here.
yeah, I see the Fortis College one, but I
Yeah.
think your other one is well, I'm not going to say
No.
it, but-
Yeah, don't say that on YouTube.
But
yeah.
just email that to me, please.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
me too, because I'll
Yes.
definitely use it.
Yeah, that's how the other student got me, actually. So
Awesome.
that was really funny. He goes, well, I don't know what to do with problem selection. What do I do? What do I do? He was so panicked. It was so funny too. I never thought that I should add that in, but you know what? That's a good idea. I should do that today. Anyway, so if you have no more questions, it has been really great having both of you. Okay?
Awesome.
Thank
Take
you for
care.
everything.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.